again, at least externally, I don't know internally how our minds are doing, beautiful or not, but externally, the weather-wise, it's a beautiful day. I hope mentally our mind is also beautiful and beautiful day. So, okay, so we will start with the, again, as usual, with a short mindfulness exercise, watching the breath mindfully. Then we can again reflect, contemplate, think. Is clear with our own direct experience how state of our mind affect everything around us. If our mind is in positive, in good state, then things around us appears better. The world around us feel better. Regardless of whatever real situation externally. On the other hand, if our mind is not in positive state of mind, then everything's appear dark, gloomy, negative, and feel that way. Even the situations around us might not be so bad, but because of state of our mind, it really appear very bad. And make our experience, our life, much more miserable, much more unhappy. Therefore, it is so important to train our mind to keep positive and peaceful and joyful all the time. Also, if our mind is more peaceful, joyful, positive, we can be more benefit and help to others as well. And to be able to keep our mind more calm, peaceful, joyful, we need to reduce, minimize those negative thoughts, harmful negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, and trying to generate and increase and improve those helpful, positive thoughts, feelings, emotions. And especially the bodhicitta mind and wisdom realizing the ultimate truth. The conventional and ultimate bodhicitta mind. And to be able to cultivate and increase them, we need to continue to reflect, contemplate, meditate, and practice. And for that, we need to be reminded all the time. And that's why we have come here together. The same message that we have heard many times, and even we know, but we forget. And so we need to be reminded so we can continue to practice, apply, integrate in our everyday life. So that there can be positive changes in our mind, in our heart. And may our act of listening to the teachings, discussion, reflection, contemplations, and all activity that we engage in our everyday life, may all of them become cause and conditions to fully enlightenment. May they all become cause and conditions to achieve fully awakened state as quick as possible. So we can be a greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, transcender, destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, so God, the knower of the world, supreme guides of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcender, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakyat claim, I prostrate, make offering, and go for it. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dhamma refuge, homage to the Great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all rams, Adam, in all respect with the Supreme faith I pay homage. Non-virtuous action, perform all the virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual apprehension, a flame of lamp, an illusion, a drop, drew, or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition things as such. To this merit may sentient beings attain the rank of all sense of seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the samsara ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. 사시베게 중심에도 다레라네 예데예바데 성계신도 이데오와 또근 너마다신 I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soge Chonam Chanchu Padu Dane Dagi Choshe Gibe Sonam Dola Kenche Sangye Do Parasho. So, in terms of the mind training that we have been following this particular text, the 7-point of mind training by Geshe Chekawa, and then within that we are on the point number 4, integrating the practices in single lifetime, and within that there are 2 sections, integrating the practices while we're still alive, and then integrating the practice at the time of death. The 5 power, or the 5 what we call the 5 strength or 5 powers. And last week we finished the first part, which is integrating the practices while we're alive. And so today we discussed the other one, integrating the same those 5 power or the strength at the time of death. It's the same practices, but the sequences change slightly, and in terms of the practices, so while we are alive, we try all our best to live more compassionate life as much as possible, more kind life as much as possible, to be as much help and benefit to others as much as possible, to be able to be service to as many sentient beings as much as possible, in whatever way, according to our own ability, according to our own capacity. And even we can't be much great help and benefit to sentient beings, to the society, to the sentient beings, at least minimum what we can do, as the Buddha's advice, is to reduce hurting and harming others as much as possible. Definitely we try all our best not to hurt and harm any sentient beings through any of our 3 doors, body, speech, and mind, in whatever way, intentionally, but also sometimes we hurt and harm unintentionally. And not because of the intention itself, but sometimes we lack the wisdom, the skillful means, or sometimes we are not mindful enough. Sometimes we are not mindful enough before we use our mouth, what we say, or how we gesture our physical behavior. Sometimes we just do it without really thinking properly, without being mindful. And in that process, sometimes we also hurt and harms others unintentionally. People get hurt. So being very mindful all the time, as much as possible, what we think, what we say, and how we present ourselves physically in our expressions in others. And through that kind of mindfulness and awareness, trying to be kind and compassionate all the time in our body, in terms of action through our three doors. So then, there come a time in our life, when we have to leave the world, this world, at least for the momentarily, temporarily, something that sometimes we don't like to think about it, but something we cannot kind of escape, that there comes a time when we have to leave the world, whether we want or we do not want, we have no options. Everyone has to leave the world, It is only a matter of when, how, where. That one we really don't know, We really don't know, how, whether it's going to be with less pain, or maybe with some pain, whether it's going to be quickly or whether it's going to be after a long time, whether we are going to have sudden or whether we are going to have more natural slow death. We don't know all of that. But the fact reality is we all have to face that death, And so when the death approach, when the death comes, how can we take the death more positively and in a more meaningful way? And how can we make it more peaceful and more meaningful? Not only to make our life meaningful and peaceful, but how can we also make our death also meaningful and peaceful, and also after the death, So that is the 5 others that we are going to be talking. I think in terms of the verse, it said that the 5 powers themselves are the great behavioral precept of the transference of consciousness. So that is I kind of like the other translation where it said the great vehicle instructions on transference are those very 5 forces. So in Buddhism, especially in Mahayana, and especially in Vajrayana, there is a concept of power, transference of consciousness to a higher rebirth, such as, Maitreya Tushidas, Amitabhas, Sukhavati, and so forth, so there is a concept of power, meaning transference of your consciousness to a higher birth, and so here it is saying, of course, there are particular practices related with the different, in Vajrayana, different practices related with the different deities, different Buddhas, and particular certain techniques. But here, when you are practicing Lojong, here is saying the best power, the best transference of consciousness at the time of death is this 5 practice of this 5 power is the best. And so here, as I mentioned, it's the same number and it's the same, but the sequence is slightly changed. As I mentioned, that is something we cannot escape, and when and how and where we cannot predict, unpredictable. And so it is better to kind of get prepared. The more we do the preparation earlier, the more easier it is when it is stuck, when we encounter that. So if we are prepared, suddenly it comes tomorrow, our mind is more kind of less prepared for that. We will have less difficulties of dealing with that because we have done some preparations. If it doesn't come tomorrow, is after 1 week, still we are prepared and okay. And if we have 1 more month, 1 more year, 10 more years, 20 more years, it's great. But even we don't have that much time, it suddenly comes, by surprise, unexpectedly. Still, your mind is to a certain level prepared, and I know we have done preparations, so we have less regret, less worry, less anxiety, less fear. And when we have less of all of that, our death will be much more peaceful, less fearful. Less regret because we are prepared and have done things that we need to be done, that we need to take care of to be done before that, so then it can be a much more peaceful and meaningful. And also we have prepared for the next stages after the death, so. And that is one of the things that we can do, start preparing for that. Even though the teachings is of course based on kind of, more kind of natural kind of death, when slowly, and that there is coming, and you started to prepare in that way. But also, that could strike us anytime, any moment, unexpectedly. So we have to start preparing now, we can't just wait, thinking I can prepare next year, or what happens if things comes before that and we are caught up unprepared, I just heard today, one of my cousins, he died again suddenly, again in a village. You never know what the real medical conditions is, but he was healthy and he was doing some with a group, and they were doing a ceremony, and after the ceremony he went, while he was sleeping he's gone. That was maybe 10 days ago. And then his younger brother went to the village to kind of take care of everything. And he was there for a week. And he was ready to come back to the Kathmandu. The day he was going to come to Kathmandu that morning, again, he just went suddenly. The two brothers went within the week. And I heard that they have one more sister, and she has some mental problem before even, and I think it must have affected her very badly to see two of her brothers. Their parents are normal, and to see two of her brothers just gone and both of them without any health issues in such a short period, that is impermanence of the life. You never know. Nobody saw that coming. If someone who has a health issue, maybe people are expected. They know they don't know exactly, but it is expected. Maybe time is coming. But when someone doesn't have that kind of health issue, we expect to live longer, and we didn't expect them to go so suddenly. But that is the fact, that is the reality that we hear, that we experience time to time. And just that clearly shows, why we need to start preparing now. We can't just take for granted just because our health is better and because we feel the age is also on our side. It doesn't always work that way. We wish that will be the case. We hope that will be the case. But, life has different stories. So anyway, so then coming to the 5 points that we're talking about. Here, the practice of the 5 power at the time of death is when we know our life is coming to end, sometimes because we have certain health issues, and sometimes maybe age is also close, and so we know, there isn't so much life span left. And so when we kind of know, as we know we are closer to that, then it's important to apply those teachings and the practices, such as the 5 powers. And in terms of the first power in that is the power of the white seed, or the seed of the virtues, and what that means is, we're getting ready and preparing for that by kind of taking care of things that need to care of. For example, whatever kind of wealth that we might have, and so we try to take care of them, make it meaningful. For example, a lot of the practitioners they do, they started to make clear, where they want to spend, it is advice. Of course, it is just a advice that you see in some by teachers and some of the scriptures, they say, you can kind of divide into 3 or 4 of whatever you have. One, you make offering to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. One, you make a charity to someone, those who are in the needs. And then little part, then you live to do some certain kind of the practices that need to be done for yourself, later. So, but of course, if you want to live for your family, then of course you can also, but it is nice to kind of have a clarity on that, whether you call will or whether you want to live a will or whatever, so that you don't have to worry so much about it once you have taken care of it. So you have less worry. So if you are less worry, your mind is more clarity. And if you want to practice, it will be more better. If your mind is too much worry, because your mind keep on wanting what to do, this and that, then your mind is not in present and also not so clarity. And also people left behind can be in a conflict as well, because they don't know exactly what to do. But if you have made it clear that they don't have to worry, they just follow it, so then they don't have to go through a lot of struggles. Very often, the people left behind have to go a lot of struggles because they have no clarity and they don't know what is the best to do, what to do, what is the best to do, because they have to make their own mind and they don't know whether that was best. And so when you have kind of that clearly, then that is good. Also, trying to take care of, to solve those unsolved, sometimes there are things that we have not solved, maybe we might have some kind of resentment towards someone, toward ourselves. It's a time to kind of forgive. If you need to forgive to yourself, need to forgive to someone else for mistakes that we might have created, they might have created. Trying to take care of them, let it go, and not to hold on anymore. And normally is for a lot of people, it's easier to do that in those times than when you are still alive and when we think, we are not going to die for. It seems people are more willing and more kind of ready to solve the unsolved those at the time. But of course, it might not be the case for everyone, unless they have some training, some practice, So, it's important to kind of, at that time, whatever small time we might have, whether it's a year, whether it's a month, whether it's a week, days, to have less regret, less guilt, less anger, less resentment, less worry, less anxiety. It's important to be in that more calm, peaceful state of mind, because that will have a strong impact on the state of mind in Pardo or intermediate states, and after that, for the futures. And as well as that very present state itself. And also it can have a strong impact on the people left behind. if we are able to die peacefully, calm, it will give them a lot of comfort. The very people who are left behind, it will make them they have less struggles and less pain and much more comfort to see someone whom they love, beloved, that they pass away peacefully, calm. On the other hand, if we go through a lot of struggles and unable to go peacefully and calm, not only it affects us, it will affect the people left behind us. It will make them very uncomfortable. They started to worry, and sometimes you see people struggle their whole life because they have seen someone very close to their life and that they died with so much pain and so much struggle. And that kind of leave them a strong imprint in their mind, and they continue to struggle in their life with that, And also it makes them more scared and fear of the death. On the other hand, if we die peacefully, calm, the people who have left behind, it gives them comfort and less fear of death themselves. Less fear of death because they know that it can be peaceful, calm death, because they have seen it, they have experienced it. So not only it affects you so much, but it can affect a lot to those who have left behind too, So it is very important. And so the idea of kind of giving up your things and wealth is to have less attachment at that time, letting go of all that and letting go of attachments. And when you have less attachments and when you are able to let go of those, whatever, things, wealth, unsolved problems, then you can have more calm and peaceful death, On the other hand, if we have a strong attachment, whether it's a person or whether it's an object, things, it can be struggles. It can be struggles. Some people struggles because their mind is still holding on something and they are not letting go of that. Their body is ready to live. Their body is, but their mind is not ready to live. Their mind is holding on something, clinging on something, grasping on something. So then there is struggle between the mind, the body, and the mind. And then it can become much more difficult, much more painful. And of course, when it is much more painful, difficult, then it also can bring up a lot of negative emotions, That is our experience, when we are much more calm, peaceful, it brings less negative emotions. When our mind is disturbed and not peaceful and calm, then a lot of other negative emotions, it can bring a lot of negative emotions and it makes it much more difficult, much more painful. And so therefore, in the monastery, I've seen so many monks, senior monks, who have taken everything ready. Some of them seems to know maybe when they are going to die, maybe a few weeks before they die, they started to make everything clear, or some of them 1 week before, some of them much more earlier, what they want to do, even though they don't have much, they have very little, but still with whatever little they have, they start to make offering to the monastery, to the Buddha Dhammas, to the monks, Buddha Dhamma Sanghas, and they leave some to do some pujas for them, and sometimes they even leave what puja need to be done. So it makes much more easier for those, whether it's a student, whether it's their friends, or whoever's taking care of, for them to just follow that, and so it makes easier for the person who's dying, and it makes easier for people who have left behind. And it's such a wonderful way to do that, a way to go that. And there are quite a lot of stories, where some people struggles, and to even their body, it is time them to kind of move forward, but because their mind is clinking and grasping something, they can't do that, and so much struggle, so much pain, So for us, even though even though we don't know, maybe we might have many years left, or maybe not, but especially, whether you do will or some kind of information there, some clarity, so that you don't have to be so concerned what is going to happen, or what it should, because at the time of death, unless you have a strong practice, sometimes our mind is not clear. We will be fortunate if there is a clarity in our mind at that time. A lot of time people's mind is not clear. And so, and then you have worry, and what to do with this and that, and then it makes even more complicated, more confused. So it's much more, we take care of that much more earlier. And then of course, at that time too, but if something happened quick, suddenly also we have taken care of it. So that is the, letting go of kind of attachment, clinging, grasping, important. And therefore it is advised, when someone's dying, to make sure that things they are attached to are not around them, because sometimes, when you see the object, then your clinging, grasping arises. If the object is not there, maybe sometimes it doesn't arise all the time, so there is a story, one person was kind of, struggling to die, so the Tibetans, they have this, big kind of jewelry ornaments. Mostly they have, like here native, turquoise and coral, blue, turquoise and coral they have. And so someone was dying and he had that on his neck. I think he was very attached to that, and he was struggling to move forward. But he was having a very difficult. And then one of the teachers knew that what happened. His mind was then so to ask someone to kind of take away that. And the moment that they took away that, then he kind of passed away. And because he was attached to that, he was clinging to that, grasping to that. And there are many stories like that where people are struggling, and then sometimes the teachers is able to identify and recognize where they were attached to, and helping them to take away those objects. And then when they don't see the object, then then they don't have that attachment, clinging, grasping that they have towards that object. And so then it becomes easy then to kind of let it go. another stories about, a monk, very, very simple monk. And of course, we can also be attached to anything, And again, he was dying, in the process of dying, but he was struggling, He was having a difficult and struggle and to live. And then, one of the monks told to one of the teachers, their teachers, and the teacher knew again exactly what was going on, and then told him, there is a much more better butter tea in the Tushita Pure Land than here. And then he passed away peacefully because he was attached to the butter tea. As simple as that, something which is very simple, but sometimes we can get attached to, your ice cream, your chocolate, or your butter tea, as simple as that. Sometimes it's basic. We can still be attached to those in that cases. And it is understandable, in sometime in certain places, certain monasteries, is not, is very hardship. They don't even have a very basic to survive, They don't even have butter to put in their teas. Some of them do not have any, even a milk to put in. So when you get a butter tea with a milk, it's a kind of luxury, it's kind of very special. And so for some, of course, they could be attached to that too, So that is, there are many stories like that when, because of the attachment to something, grasping, clinging attachment to something, that there struggles. So the idea is that you don't have that kind of struggles. The idea is that you clear everything. So you have no more attachment, you have no more attachment, no more clinging, no more grasping, no more worry. So then it becomes much more, it can then become peaceful and calm, and you can focus your mind more on practice itself. Then the second is the power of, the dedication of the prayer, So it is, so if possible, we try to, at the time of death, before death, we try to do the, if possible, if we are strong enough, or if we are not strong enough, someone can help us to guide us and we just follow it. And especially if something practice that we have done before, it might be easy. If someone has not done the practice, then it might not be so easy to follow. Even someone's trying to guide you and help you, but trying to do the refuge and bodhicitta, and then trying to do the 7-limb practice, it can be, long, short, very, very short detail, very short, to Buddha Dhamma, to the Guru, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And then, making for their, asking for their blessings, asking for their blessings, and dedicating all the virtues, all the positive karma virtues that we have created in the past, that we are creating now in the present, that we will be creating in the future, all the virtues that we have created in 3 times, of all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, also especially the virtues that we have created. We dedicate to be able to not be separated from the practice of the practice and realization of the two bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta in this moment, in the parto, intermediate stage, and in all future lives until we achieve enlightenment. So dedicating that virtues, all the virtues, positive karma, to really so that we can continue to practice and work on to develop the bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta and the wisdom or ultimate bodhicitta. And if we have already developed, not to deteriorate, not to diminish, but to maintain, to increase more and more, So we make a strong dedications. And also we make a strong dedications to meet the Mahayana teachers, qualified Mahayana teachers in the futures until we achieve enlightened in all through that, who can show us maintain and to increase and improve the two bodhicitta mind. And we make a strong dedications for all the gurus, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to bless us, to guide us, to cultivate, to maintain, to increase two bodhicitta mind. Now in present, in that moment, and at the time of death, and after the death in parto, and after that in all the future lives until we achieve enlightenment. Always be guided, always be blessed to be able to continue to do those practices. So we make a strong dedications in relation to that. So for example, the practice of, we already said that before that we do the practice of the power of the power of the white seed, making offering, making charity, and engaging in the other practice, virtuous practice. So whatever virtues, whatever positive karma, merit we have created through that, we dedicate all of that for that purpose. So that is the power of dedications or the prayer. So when we say dedicate and prayer, it's not the word, it's the feeling. Okay, word is just a tool. It's a tool to. Word is like a tool to connect with our feelings. We use the word to recite the prayer, the word, in order to connect our feelings. And so when we say dedication and prayer, it has to come from your heart, depth of your heart, with feeling, not just a word. Word is just a tool. Because sometimes, we think when we think of dedication prayer, we just kind of think is the word. More than the word, is the feeling, Here the wish, inspiration and wish to be able to do that, making that strong, dedicating in that way, Then the power of, the power of the blamings, or the power of the sunjimba, reapproach. Again, basically, as we mentioned before, similar, at the time of death, we might encounter some physical discomfort, maybe our mind be a little bit confused, unclear, maybe because of that kind of physical discomfort, also maybe not knowing about the futures. That can also some kind of more confused, trying to make sense of it. Is there nothing after the death, or is there a life after death, or is there, like as in some spiritual says, is this just either heaven or hell, internal hell, or whether there's a reincarnation or not? Nothing, we can't say for nothing, for with sure, everything is kind of unknown. Even when during our lifetime, we might not be concerned with that, but a lot of time, a lot of people at the time of death, that caution arises. And that can bother them a lot. And that can bring a lot of thoughts, a lot of, confusions. Of course, if someone has strong belief, maybe less confusions in that sense, whatever your beliefs are, but so sometimes there can be confusions, a lot of confusions. And when you're physically kind of discomfort and confusions with all of that, then it can bring a lot of other negative emotions, anger, hatred, can trigger a lot of things that if a lot of things, there is unresolved, a lot of things, it can trigger all of those to arises, And that is why we need to kind of solve those problems. If there are a lot of unsolved problems, is so important to solve when we physically healthy and our mind is more clear through practice. We need to clear all of that. Otherwise, we just kind of bury them, suppress them. We try to not think about them. It's not solved, but it's there. But we just try to not to think about them. And then something happens, and especially when we have those kind of difficulties, physically, emotionally, then those can trigger all this unsolved, and all that can manifest in that time. And then it will be difficult because so many things there's so many unsolved, and all are coming up. And then it is hard to deal with that because there's so much there happening. And not only so much happening, physically weak, mentally a little bit weak, confused, unsolved. And so it becomes more challenging. So especially a lot of things, we think we have solved it, but a lot of time we have not solved. It's just that we have not given thought on that. We have forgotten about some of the things. And then something triggers you, and then all can manifest. And so therefore it's important that we try to work with them now, and solve them as much as possible. Sometimes things that we don't want to revisit, sometimes things we don't want to think about it, it's painful. It's better to do now because we have physically, mentally more better capacity to do than that. We don't want to bring all this garbage manifesting when you are physically weak, mentally weak and confused. That will be much more tough to solve, to deal with that, in that state. So whatever is happening on physical level, on emotional, mental level, we try to recognize it, identify them, and then saying, oh, all this physical pain is a result of my own, selfish attitudes, self-centeredness. All these mental confusions, all this anxiety, worry, all this fear, all this anger, hatred, resentment, whatever emotion that we are going through, saying all this all are result of selfish attitude. This all are result of selfish attitude. So piling all of this problem into the self on top of the selfish attitude. It's like you have the burden there you're carrying, you give that burden to someone to carry. And the someone who is going to carry that is the selfish attitude. So you give all this pain, all this problem, all this burden to the selfish attitude. And saying, you have to carry it, it is your result. Because of you, that's what all is happening. Then, saying, because of this selfish attitude, I have suffered so much from the beginning of time. I continue to suffer, and I will continue to suffer in the future unless I try to get rid of this. Unless I try to get rid of this selfish attitude, it has led me to suffer in the past, continue to lead me to suffering, and it will take me in more suffering in the future. And so with that understanding, we apply that in that moment, in that understanding, with that strong understanding, then we try to, reduce in whatever way as much as possible to reduce their selfish attitude and make a strong determination and prayer to walk in this life, in the part or in all future lives, to reduce and to overcome that selfish attitude. And requesting for the blessing and inspiration from the gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so that we become success in reducing and overcoming that selfish attitude, which is the root of our suffering and suffering of others. So applying that. So at the time of that, when all these difficulties that we might be encountering, whatever difficulties, instead of blaming yourself and being harsh on yourself, or blaming others and being harsh on others, instead, we don't have to blame yourself, you don't have to blame other sentient beings. If there is something we need to blame, then it's selfish attitude. We blame on selfish attitude. So then you don't have to be upset and angry with any sentient beings, others or yourself. And we don't have to be so harsh on others and yourself. Instead, we kind of pile all of that to the selfish attitude, and give to the selfish attitude. So far, the selfish attitude has been doing that. All the burden they give to us. All the problem they give to us. All the suffering they give to us. Now we understand that, and now all the problem, all the suffering, we give the selfish attitude, we pile on them. And so that is the power of, as Lama Zopa said, blaming the selfish attitude or egoistic mind, So through that, we kind of destroy the egoistic mind. And less egoistic, the less pain, less problem. And less selfish attitude, the more easier is to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. So I think we will have a short break, okay? 10 minutes break. The power of the familiarity, to So is the practice that we already kind of mentioned before, the practice of the bodhicitta mind and wisdom, and so again, at that time, you try to meditate as much as possible, contemplate on the bodhicitta mind, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth or reality as much as possible at that time. And that is the best practice that we can do, even though there are some kind of advanced kind of some practice, such as the in Vajrayana, Poa or transference consciousness, those are only effective if someone has really, really great foundations, so it can be reliable only someone has a great foundations. If you don't have the good foundations, such as the basic foundation of the Lamrim, I don't know how effective those practices are. But one thing we can be sure, if we can kind of reflect, contemplate, meditate on, the bodhicitta and emptiness, then you can be assured that we can have a better, higher future life. Yeah, there is nothing more better way than to be to die with such a loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. What a life. We live with loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and we die with loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. That is the best way to do that. There's nothing much more profound and better than to be able to do that, And definitely that will have a strong impact in our, pardo state, as well as life after that, next life. And it will make much more easier to practice the bodhicitta and others in the futures. And that is why, sometimes you see people, who are very, even they don't grow up in kind of environment where they have any dharma, but their heart is in dharma, even though they didn't learn anything in their upbringings or environment that they live in. But you see some people, their heart is real dharma, and because of their past imprint, because of their past practice. And for some, they hear one time and they boom, they get understand. For some, even you studied 20 years, they have difficulties. Why? Because the other one has a lot of imprint from the past, and one didn't have enough imprint, so it requires more effort. And sometimes, for some people, when they experience or when they see certain situation, it awakens them up. That situation awakens of them in different ways. Sometimes it awakens their love and compassion. Sometimes it awakens their wisdom. Sometimes it awakens about their, of realization of karma or different things. Again, just by one instant, because they have already done certain practice or imprint is there, and because of that, then and His Holiness Dalai Lama also share stories about his own life. Of course, we all know that he's always trying to be very humble and humility, and he doesn't like to share a lot of his personal kind of spiritual experiences, but once in a while he will kind of share, and one of the things that he talked about is the imprint from the past. Even from a very young age, even like when he was 7-8 year age, he could memorize the texts very quickly, very easily. He was just telling recently that he memorized the praise to dependent arising, which he just taught recently 3 days. He said he went to one place on the way one morning. He memorized that, and since then he had been. And he said in some of the, when he's studying and learning, some of the subjects, which a lot of even the Geshes find very difficult, some points, from very young age, he was able to understand it quickly without much difficulties. The difficult points that in philosophical and those teachings, sometimes there are some very difficult points, where they different commentary, different masters have different interpretations, and because there's different interpretation because it's a difficult point. But he said from very young age, he have found very easy, and again, those are imprint, those are imprint from the past. And so therefore, if we have practice and if we have imprint of those bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness, even if we don't have realization in this time, next time it will be much more easier, because of all the imprint, because of all the practice, because of everything that we heard and all the imprint. So I think yeah. And His Holiness, once said, when he died, his refuge is bodhicitta. If there is anything that he was going to go for refuge, then that is bodhicitta. So if we can have bodhicitta mind, even it is not a what you call spontaneous and effortless, but even with effort, even we can try to cultivate with a effort, little bit of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind at the time of death, then we don't have to worry at all about the futures, So basically, we are practicing the same practice that we have practiced throughout our life, which have familiarized ourselves, and then at the time of death also we try to practice that. In Lojong, that is the main one. But of course, also one thing I always say, it is important to us to build some practice, very strong practice. Whatever that practice, sometimes it can be very simple, sometimes the practice can be very simple. But a practice that you have done over your years so much, it becomes so easily, so naturally. It doesn't require so much effort. That is very important. because any practice that we have done over the time and where it doesn't require a lot of effort, even it's a simple practice, at the time of death, even when our body is very, supposedly, maybe we have a lot of difficulties in our body, pain, and our mind is also not so clear, confusion. Even in those states, we can do the practice because of that familiarity and doesn't require so much effort. And if we can, it can be just a refuge. It can be a strong, refuge to Buddha Dhamma Sangha. It can be a strong refuge to our gurus, any of gurus. It can be any strong of faith to any of the deities. It can be just reciting with that faith, reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. Or it can be mindfulness meditations, someone who is very familiar with that. And then, of course, then if there is other more profound, more advanced practice, such as loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom, those are even better. But at least it is important to build up one practice that you feel strongly connected, and to continue to do that practice is important. Because that is one of the things I realized and I noticed with a lot of people that I've seen, people, my own relative and others who have died, they didn't have very profound practice, but they have strong faith in the, their teachers. They have strong faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. They have strong faith in some of the deities, and they have been reciting Om Mani Padme Hum all their life. And I can see at the time of death, they are just happy with that practice. And there's sense of meaning in their life. And there is some kind of, less fear because of that, because they are able to practice well, and there's sense of feeling they will be kind of taken care of, that they will be guided by whether it's their guru, whether it's the deity. Whatever, regardless, whether the guru is able to really guide them, whether the deity is really guide them, that is another matter that we can talk about. But just having that faith, that strong convictions, give them sense of peace and calmness and sense of fearless or less fear. So I think, I think it is important. I think sometimes one of the things I feel in the West is lacking of that. People does not have one particular practice where they have very strongly felt, and where then even they can't do it, someone can remind them and then they can follow, because maybe you're physically too weak sometimes because of your sudden sickness, and maybe mentally, maybe because of all the drugs that we have, your mind might be a little bit confused, sometimes. But still, simple practice, and because you have been doing so long, it doesn't require a lot of effort, difficulty, and you can follow it easily. And so I think that is, important to really have that kind of one practice that you feel very strongly, that you do everything that would become very easy without much effort, But here, of course, in Lojong is the main practice is the two bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta, or the wisdom. And so this is, if we can do, then what better practice one can ask or one can do than that, so that. And then the lastly, the practice of the power of determinations. So again, making a strong determinations, because strong determinations, intentions, and aspirations, as I mentioned before, is the key starting for everything. Everything, as Buddha said, everything starts from the tip of the inspiration, intentions, and determinations, you know. And so making strong intentions, inspiration, determinations to continue to practice the two bodhicitta mind at that very moment, in that present, at the time of death, whenever that might be. It might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be next week, next month, next year. You know, at the time, the moment it present, and then at the time of death, and after the death, at the time in the Pardo state, intermediate state, and in the future, all future life until we achieve enlightenment, that I will practice this bodhicitta mind, the two bodhicitta mind, as the main practice, regardless of whatever circumstances, difficulties. Those practice. I will continue to practice that, put all the effort to engage in the practice towards two bodhicitta mind. So cultivating that kind of strong intentions, motivation, inspiration, and determination is very important factor. When you have that strong determination at the time of death, it will have a strong impact at the when you are in Pardo state. And that will, when you have that same level of that bodhicitta mind and determination at the Pardo state, then it will have a strong impact on the next life. You know, and so it is like the continuity of that practice continue very strongly from one stage to another stage. So then it becomes much more easy to practice next time, because it's still kind of alive. It is still kind of fresh, and then you just need a little effort, not so much effort. On the other hand, you know, even we have those imprint, and if it's not strong, and then sometimes, you know, the imprint is there, but maybe, you know, we haven't been able to kind of activated it, watered it for a long time, then it might require more effort. But when it's still fresh, when it's still kind of strong, then it requires very, very small effort, and to continue to practice and to continue to make progress. You know? And so therefore, cultivating that kind of strong determination is very important. And then in that verse at the end, they're saying the supreme method. I think where was the one? I think the one we have is cultivate those practices. So then I think in the Tibetan versions, there is a then at the time of death, you know, if possible, we can try to sit, you know, sit and try to practice, meditate. But sometimes it might not be possible, you know, to really sit and practice. And so then if possible, if that is not possible, then other possible is like what they call lying like a lion, like the Buddha, you know, on the left side, your left hand, and then lying down. And so while you lie down, so then it says, you know, you can kind of, with your hand, you can push the nose this way, and you breathe in. And as you breathe in, you can visualize taking the suffering and cause of suffering of all sentient beings. And then you close that one and breathe out, and you can visualize, giving all your virtues, all the positive karma, all the excellent qualities, whatever positive there, sending that to all sentient beings, basically doing the Tonglen. So you can do the Tonglen. Through practice of Tonglen, then you can try to increase and improve loving kindness, compassion, both in the mind. So while you are doing Tonglen as much as possible, while you are lying down. But of course, if you cannot do that with the close your nose with that, also it doesn't matter. You don't have to do the Tonglen. While you are lying down, you can still continue to the practice with the Tonglen. Taking and giving, By me going through all these physical challenges, mental challenges, and the suffering of the dead, may no one has to go through all these sufferings. May I be able to experience on the behalf of all of them so that they don't have experience. May no one has to experience the physical discomfort. May no one has to experience mental, confusions and unclarity and all of those negative emotions. May no one has to go through the pain of the dead. By me experiencing, no one has to experience. May I be able to experience on behalf of them. And then with your own experience, if we can, then we can do the Tonglen on top of that. By understanding, because of our own experience, then understanding how everyone is experiencing similar, some words. Some of them will experience that in the future. So by understanding everyone's suffering and pain, and cultivating a strong compassion, the wish to free them from that pain and suffering, wish to take away those pain and suffering and cause of those sufferings, and then with that strong wish wanting to relieve them of those pain, suffering, and cause of suffering, then as you breathe in, you can think and visualize taking all that present pain and suffering, future pain and suffering, and their causes. And then as you breathe out, you can see all your virtues, all the positive in the form of white light. And moment it kind of touched the other sentient beings, them receiving physical comfort, health, mental, peaceful mind, calm mind, unconfused mind, clear mind, and then fearless, confidence, patience, love, compassion, wisdom, all of that, them receiving all kinds mental states, and the joy of that. So, and then gradually achieving the fully enlightenment. So you can try to do that Tonglen practice. As much as you can, When you can do more extensive. And when you can't, because again, especially at time of death, our lot of time, even though it's not the same for everyone, some lot of time, there is a physically weak, mentally weak, so we might not be able to focus long time. So, but we can do a short. And especially if we have been doing that throughout our life, then it will be easier. Because it doesn't require a lot of effort. And so even you are weak, physically, mentally, even we are not so strong, but still we can be able to practice easily because it doesn't require so much effort, because it's because of the familiarity, it is easy. It's like some things it doesn't require effort because you have done so much. It becomes so easy, so like that. And then we can think, also the death itself, the sickness itself, whatever physical or emotional discomfort, or the pain and suffering and sickness, or whatever, death itself, and the suffering of all of that itself are all empty of existence from its own side. They all are merely imputed by our mind. So meditating on emptiness a little bit. All the samsara, nirvana, all the phenomena, nothing exists objectively from its own side, by its own power, by its own entity. Everything exists merely by, on the basis, on the collection of the basis, then the mind merely imputing as an object, as that particular object. So again, that way, we try to meditate on emptiness a little bit as much as you can. When you have more energy, time, you can try to do more extensive. And when you have less energy and when you have less time, then you can try to do that meditations. Even it means few minutes. And so if we keep on that doing, time to time, what a wonderful way to do that. Just like as we were mentioning before, last week, when you do practice, strong practice in the daytime, over the time people can have do the meditation or practice even in the dream. As I was mentioning of His Holiness Dalai Lama and some other practitioners where they are dreaming about meditating on emptiness or bodhicitta even in the dream. Same like when you do that practice while you are dying, then in Parto, in the middle stage, just like the dream state is naturalist, you can start having that practice, Because the Parto is like the dream state, and being alive is like, and so therefore, so then just like we dream of what we practice during the daytime, same way in the Parto stage, and one can start to continue to practice the meditations by the power of what you have done before the death. So then it will be so great. And of course, when you do that practice at the time of the Parto, while you are in Parto, then when you have, again, you take the next birth, and then definitely, that continue there, and you can easily practice it, easily, without so much effort. So therefore, engaging in this practice of the 5 power strength at the time of death, not only it helps us at the time of death to have more calm, peaceful, but as I mentioned, it also have a strong positive impact on those who are left behind, and it will have an impact in our Parto stages, and it will have impact on our future life to have a higher, better future life, not only higher and future better life, but also to be able to continue to practice the path and to improve and increase better and better. So I think that is more or less about this, the 5 power at the time of death. And then there is also called the transference of the substance. And sometimes, when someone's dying, then, if like the Zen mandalas, if someone has Zen mandalas, you know. Then when someone died, then on top of their crown, you know, you put like cream, and top of cream, you can put that kind of the scent there, you know. So again, that can be another kind of pour by the substance. So anyway, so I think that because here it talks about pour. So then there is one question I think I would like to. Okay, I think there is two questions. One, I'm going to read the questions. Then, when one is a registered organ donors, medical official will want to take positions of the corpse quickly so they can harvest the healthy organs to pass on to others. This contradicts Buddhist practice of not disturbing the body for some period of time after clinical death. Is it important to abide by this practice rather than helping others through organ donations? I think it is a difficult questions, as well as I think it is important questions as well. One of the points of not disturbing the body is because even though someone is clinically dead, but still the most subtle mind might be still there. The most subtle consciousness might not have left. Even though gross mind have ceased. Even though there is no more gross mind, but still the most subtle mind might be still there. And for a practitioner, some of the advanced practitioners, they can utilize that most subtle mind in their meditations. And if we can utilize that most subtle mind, then it's very powerful, you know. And so therefore, we never know who is an advanced practitioner or not. So we want to give that opportunity for everyone, as long as they are in that state, you know. But someone who doesn't have that kind of advanced technique to utilize it, then maybe it might not have so much differences, because ordinary beings, they go through the process, they are not even aware of those different stages of mind. And then sometimes you might be aware, but you are unable to utilize it. So to do that, someone need to be a quite advanced practitioner to be able to, but also, you know, we really do not know who is advanced practitioner or not. And so therefore, we don't want to disturb anyone's, if possible, you know, if possible, we don't want to disturb. That is one thing I wanted to kind of mention in relation to this one, not disturbing that. Why? You know, because when we have most subtle mind, it is said by the condition itself, it's easy to have a direct realization of emptiness if someone has some practice of emptiness, and if they know how to utilize that, you know, mind, because all the gross mind had ceased, so there is no dualistic view, you know, because it is our gross mind that create all dualistic view. This is you, me, subject, object, good, bad, all of that, you know, is all conceptual mind, and all of that gross mind. And so at that point, there is no gross mind, it's more subtle mind. And so then also there's no distractions, because most distractions are because of the gross mind. And so there's no distractions in that way. And also it is by the state of mind itself, there is no kind of dualistic. And so that if someone can utilize that at that point, then it can be very, very strong. But most time, you know, we can't utilize it. But the whole idea of not disturbing is that, you know, you don't want to disturb their meditations. And because for some individual, that meditation can be extremely powerful, extremely powerful. And so that, but I think, you know, income of when you are kind of wanting to donate your organs, I think as long as, of course, it should be coming from a compassion, bodhicitta, to love, compassion, bodhicitta mind. And of course, I'm sure that most of the people who does, it come from that. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that, you know. And so therefore, you know, if someone doesn't have the ability to utilize that, that more subtle mind to that kind of meditations, then why not utilize it to save someone's life, give a, and being a, to be able to donate is a, is able to donate is maybe better, you know. I don't think it will have, I think it is great if someone can do that. It can give life, many life, it can save many people's life. And, but of course, if someone has that ability, if someone has that ability to utilize that mind in their meditation and to have this direct realization of emptiness in such a way, then if you compare these two, then because it is so, you know, with that wisdom, then you can kind of overcome all the delusions and overcome the samsara, not only for yourself, for others. And so then it has better purpose, high purpose. But if someone cannot utilize it, then donating has more high purpose, more usefulness, you know. So it depends on that, you know. So I think, but who knows, you know. I'm just saying blah blah blah, you know. I've been this is a kind of this question has been not raised in the past, so there is no clear explanation in the earlier text, you know. And so it is hard to, because it is something kind of new, donating all your organs, and it hasn't been in the old times, so it hasn't been discussed. So if I go to the, whether it's sutra or a lot of Indian commentary, you can't see much about it. Even in recent time, there have been questions asked to His Holiness Dalai Lama and other teachers, and also, you know, there is not so clear answer to all of them. It is something kind of so, but if I use my reasoning and logic, you know, that is how we're trained. And so now I'm seeing, you know, if I use a little bit of reasoning and logic, then I see, that is how I see, well, how I feel it. If someone can access that clear mind and able to utilize it for that purpose, then it has high purpose, greater purpose. If not, that's most ordinary being who does not have able to utilize that in that meditation, then you just go through that. And so in that senses, then the other, with that kind of good intention, motivations, then I think that might have high purpose, you know. So I think that is all kind of I can. So then I think there are a couple of questions I want to. Buddha's position at the dead was lying on the right side. So it is like this. So is your, oh, right, yeah. So I guess depend on, that is always complication when you say right, whether it's saying from that side or your side, you know. Even when we have like, when we married field, when they say right side, or even offerings from right side, whether you are saying from the person who is offering, or are we saying the right or left from the married field itself. So sometimes there's a little bit of complication about that. But like it is, when you are lying yourself, then it's right side. But if you watch Buddha lying, then yeah, it could be. So that is that. Yeah. So that is the left. And I think, let me see, there was another. Plus, if the subtle mind is still there when the person is not actually dead, yes, it is true. As long as the most subtle mind is there, then person is not actually dead. And so that is another kind of moral kind of, is that killing or not killing, in that cases, is it taking life or not, so that is where another kind of complication comes, because you are still not totally dead, but but again, as I mentioned, if your intention is correct and right, and that both true love, compassion, bodhicitta, totally trying to help, maybe it might be a different. It might be. Okay, okay. I think maybe that is all. So, okay. So again, today I don't think we have any specific kind of what you call homework, but you continue to do the homework that from the last week. Okay, and I was very inspired and happy. At least I know some of you have been doing, because one of them sent me a message that she forgot morning, but she remembered later, and then she did later. So that is great. At least you are trying to do that, and I think it gives me a great joy and happiness that you are not just listening, but actually you are trying to apply and trying to do it at home. The homework, the practice, the meditations. So I think you can continue to do one more week, and you can focus on whatever particular practice you want to focus on, So, okay, we do the dedications. Due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Yeah, maybe next time we don't have to have the first two. Okay. No, I'm going to do Shantideva. Because then it becomes too long. May all the beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and the mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid to be little with a mind weighed down by depression. May all the blind see forms and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothes, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains, bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments, whatever disease they are in the world. May they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. a wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparable kind in the Gato, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold a subdued moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all sustaining, preserving, and spreading mention of victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayer, honoring the three Jews, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.